Good evening and thank you for joining us. Today, the Pope said, "I'm sorry" to survivors and families for the Catholic Church's role in Canada's residential schools.
It was a rare and unexpected apology from the Vatican, and it prompted both tears and celebration. Jill Makashon has the details.
This moment marked with ceremony and sadness as residential school survivors who shared their truths with the Pope today heard an apology.
Vorrei dirvi di tutto cuore, sono molto addolorato.
With all my heart, I am very sorry, he said.
Nel chiedervi scusa.
He expressed shame and asked God's forgiveness for what he called the deplorable conduct of some members of the Catholic Church.
Visitando i vostri territori nati.
And committed to visiting Canada, but not in winter, he said.
Non ci andrò in inverno voi,
This day is seen as both sorrowful and celebratory. In St. Peter's Square, a round dance with Indigenous delegates and even one of Canada's bishops. This considered an historic first step.
The next step is for the Holy Father to apologize to our family at their home.
Indigenous leaders have been calling for an apology for years. Still, former National Chief Phil Fontaine admitted surprise today.
In my case, I didn't think he would say, "I am sorry." I didn't think I would hear him say how he felt shame for and guilt for what the church did to our people.
In an exchange of gifts, the Pope extended a literal olive branch made of brass, a symbol of peace, and then he said goodbye for now.
Pray for me, don't forget. I'll pray for you. Thank you very much for your visit. Bye-bye.
Indigenous delegates expect this apology to be followed up with tangible action. Today, Canada's Catholic bishops promised to release more records, and survivors are awaiting details of a papal apology in Canada. Jill Makashon, CTV News, Vatican City.
First Nation leaders from around the Northwest are reacting to the Pope's apology today. The responses vary, but they share a common thread of hope that the long-awaited move by the head of the Catholic Church might help some survivors in their healing journeys. And it's a sentiment echoed by the bishop here in Thunder Bay. Lee Noonan reports.
NAN Deputy Grand Chief Annabette Achnepanescum welcomed the apology but said that it needs to be followed with sincere action. She pointed out that not all residential school survivors accepted the apology and that she would have liked to hear an acknowledgement of the graves that continue to be uncovered at residential school sites.
The Catholic Church needs to ensure that this never happens again, that no child that is, affiliated with the Catholic Church is harmed in any way. And that goes for all the people around the world where the Catholic Church has presence.
Chief Peter Collins of Fort William First Nation called the apology a critical moment for the church, highlighting the role the church continues to play in the lives of many First Nations people.
To me, it's a historical day for our communities. It's a historical day for the survivors. It's a historical day for the families that in the unmarked graves. And I think that's an important message to our communities, our families that have been impacted by residential schools, and we're still seeing no generational impacts today.
Bishop Fred Joseph Colley emphasized that work is ongoing within the Catholic Church to rebuild relationships with Indigenous communities. There were 4 Catholic-run residential schools in his diocese, including St. Joseph's here in the city.
And so we have to take ownership for the wrongs that were committed and move forward from there. And I hope that, whatever little steps we can take, we'll be able to move towards healing and reconciliation.
Collins and Achnepanescum both expressed their appreciation for survivors who traveled to Rome to share their experiences. Neither expect that the Pope will visit Thunder Bay when he travels to Canada, but Achnepanescum added she hopes he will visit a residential school site such as St. Anne's on the James Bay coast. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Well, meanwhile, another historic event was marked today in Thunder Bay and Sudbury as the Northern Ontario School of Medicine officially became Canada's first independent medical school. Corey Nordstrom was on hand for the local announcement as excitement filled the halls at the newly named Nazem University.
Gatherings were held in both Thunder Bay and Sudbury to celebrate the first official day of Nazem University. Dr. Sarita Verma will serve as its very first president and dean, saying they want to be viewed in the same light as Oxford and other world-class institutes.
Nazem U will be known for what it does. We're already well known, but we're going to make Northern Ontario the destination of choice for education and training when it comes to healthcare.
Verma says the newfound independence will have little to no impact on students during the transition, though there is excitement throughout its two campuses. Dr. William McCready came out of retirement to work with Verma and is thrilled to help shape Nazem's path going forward.
To be free to collaborate with new partners, to be able to expand our medical education so that we'll have more doctors in the north is just an amazing feeling.
The celebration comes on the heels of Ontario officially announcing significant increases to enrollment for Nazem University, with 30 more medical degrees and 41 more residency training spots over the next 5 years.
Training more doctors will ensure that Ontarians can access the health care they need when they need it, wherever they may live.
The last year plus has been a whirlwind for Nazem officials, culminating with the Institute becoming Canada's first independent medical school. But the work doesn't end there for Dr. Sarita Verma and company. They need to find board members and fill gaps previously provided by Laurentian and Lakehead universities.
Registration and electronic databases for your students that will be registering from Laurentian Lakehead to Nazem U, etc.
Very close to an agreement with Lakehead on research, faculty cross appointments, and animal care. And we'll be working hard on the facility side to have a good relationship with them. We believe that if we have an agreement on important things like research, that we'll be able to move that forward with the rest of it.
There's still a need for roughly 300 doctors in Northern Ontario. Now that Nazem has more say in what they do, more focus will be generated elsewhere in the north.
We want to expand Kenora, Sioux Lookout, Sault Ste. Marie, Hearst, Manitoulin Island. We already have a lot of students and faculty there, and we need to be based there too.
Corey Nordstrom, TVT News.
Thunder Bay Police have announced the arrest of a suspect in connection with the city's first murder of the year, which was committed more than 2 months ago. 37-year-old Antoine Bouchard died on January 26th. Uniformed officers and investigators with the Major Crimes Unit attended the residence in the 300 block of Bethune Street after getting the call. Few other details were released at the time, but police confirmed they were treating the incident as a homicide. A suspect was later identified, and on Wednesday, Kingston police located and arrested 28-year-old Joshua David LeBlanc. He's been charged with second-degree murder. Arrangements are now being made for him to return to Thunder Bay for his court proceedings.
A home in Gillies Township has been destroyed by fire. Volunteer fire crews from Gillies and other rural fire services were called to the residence on Highway 588 early this morning, but they weren't able to save the structure. The occupants had returned home from working the night shift to discover their house on fire. There were no human injuries, but unfortunately several pets perished in the blaze. A section of Highway 588 was closed to all traffic during the fire and subsequent investigation, but it was reopened before the noon hour.
The Mattawa Chiefs and Council went public with some serious allegations today. The chiefs say the practice known as birth alerts continue to happen for some Indigenous new mothers in Thunder Bay. The chiefs raised their concerns last week, alleging that they've received reports about incidents still occurring at Thunder Bay Regional. In 2020, the Ontario government ordered a halt to birth alerts, in which maternity ward staff informed social service agencies about mothers who may have issues taking care of their newborns. Mattawa has produced brochures to be distributed at maternity wards in Thunder Bay and other smaller hospitals in the region to remind everyone that birth alerts are not allowed. Long Lake 58 Chief Judy Desmoulins says it's always been a big concern for her people in this region.
If the child is really in need of protection, You know, there's got to be community involvement, family involvement to make a proper plan before it even, you know, reaches the hospital stage. So there's a lot of social kinds of programming that needs to be involved prior to this.
Thunder Bay Regional issued a statement today insisting that the hospital, quote, does not participate in the practice of birth alerts and is committed to keeping it that way.
Well, turning to Northwestern Ontario's COVID-19 situation now, hospitalizations are down a bit at the Regional Health Sciences Centre today. There are 21 COVID patients now being treated at the regional hospital. That's 3 fewer than on Thursday. The number of ICU patients is unchanged at 8. The hospital's occupancy rate sits just under 102%, while the occupancy rate in intensive care is nearly 82%. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is reporting 64 new COVID-19 infections since its last update on Wednesday. However, that's likely an underestimate due to Ontario's testing restrictions. There are 113 known active cases across the TBDHU. Over in the Northwestern Health Unit's catchment area, there are now 240 active infections. The positivity rate in that part of the region has risen to 17.8%.
Ontario's Chief Electoral Officer visited the city this week in preparation for the June 2nd provincial vote. Ray Gacenza started off his cross-province tour here in the Lakehead, meeting with returning officers and other staff. He wanted to reassure those working the polls that they will have safety measures in place to prevent COVID-19 spread. The province has carefully watched other elections that have taken place over the last 3 years, saying with confidence that the voting process in First Nations will be better and more clear. With just over a month until the writ drops, the Chief Electoral Officer also wanted to go over what's new for the upcoming election.
We have now 10 days of advanced voting where we used to have 5, so there'll be more opportunity for advanced polls, and that really helps flatten the curve of the vote. We still have technology in some of the polls, so over 90% of Ontarians will vote in a technology-enabled poll, meaning the process is relatively quick and efficient.
The province also launched an Elections Ontario app today for the upcoming election. It aims to give voters the ability to communicate with his office, and it has a number of features to make voting an easier process.
Possible improvements to Dawson Road will be discussed at Monday night's City Council meeting. A motion is being brought forward by Councillor Mark Bentz that could bring about changes to what many consider to be a dangerous stretch of roadway. The motion recommends potential new safety measures such as speed reductions, signage, and additional turning lanes. Parts of Dawson Road within city limits are controlled by the Ministry of Transportation, so any changes would require discussion between the city and the MTO. Bentz believes new safety measures are important, especially with the designated truck route unlikely to move ahead anytime soon.
There's a lot of issues happening there. Given that the community and council does not wish to move forward with the DTR, you know, I think it's only right that we ask as a council for administration to give us their recommendations on any and all safety measures that could be implemented on there.
If councillors vote in favor of requesting a staff report on new safety measures, it would come back to council in early August at the latest.
The founder of Thunderbird Wildlife Rescue is making a request to Thunder Bay City Council on Monday night. Jen Sallow wants to lease a portion of the former Chippewa Park Wildlife Exhibit, which has sat vacant since 2017. The wildlife rescue is currently operating in Sallow's backyard, and with the rate her rescue has been growing, she doesn't have enough space. Sallow says the small portion of the park she is looking at is perfect for her needs, as it includes wildlife kennels that she would repair and utilize for critical care. Another portion she is looking at has a pair of 100-foot flight pens, which will help with the rehabilitation of eagles. If approved, Sallow would like to get into the wildlife park this spring to start fixing it up. She says she doesn't have a set timeline for the future and just wants to get through the first year before thinking about her next steps.
I think we're just going to have to see how it goes. Let's get year one under my belt, and fixing the place and getting it set up to meet the standards of wildlife rehabilitation is going to take some time and money.
Well, interesting to see how council decides to proceed.